everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nerds with Friends. My name is Cody Leach. As always, I'm joined by Christian Garcia
What's up? And Goblin back here.
and Goblin for all the YouTubers. You can see him playing in the background. So cute with his little baseball t-shirt on. Well, you may have noticed if you're watching us on YouTube, but maybe if you're listening to us too, maybe it sounds a little different. We are recording virtually this time. Christian's door is all broken at his house, and
Fucking adult problems, man. It was like
yeah.
the upstairs unit had like a fire. What's it been like? Has it been a year? I don't know.
I
Has
don't
it
know
been?
if it's been that long, but it's been a while, like maybe 8 months or something like that.
Yeah, they had a fire and like firefighters had to come and bust down outdoor while we were at work. And yeah, 8 months later, they're just like, hey, call me yesterday. Hey, we're gonna come over and fix the door tomorrow. I was like, oh, cool. All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks for all the advance notice.
Yeah, and then it's like it'll be about 2 hours. I'm like, all right, no worries. They're coming in at 9 in the morning, and fucking 4 hours later, 5 hours later, they're still
Still
working
working
on
on
it.
it. Yeah, that's rough. I hate when real adults problems get in the way of all of our fun stuff. But that's okay. We still got a fun show. Thank you guys for coming by, stopping, liking, and subscribing, listening, following on the Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. We do appreciate that. Make sure to check out patreon.com/nerds with friends to help support the podcast too. Really helps us out. Helps us get new camera equipment and stuff, green screens and all that kind of stuff. I guess there'll be no green screen on this one. Maybe I can come up with a cool digital background or something. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about The Last of Us. The final episode just aired last Sunday. And because of like weird scheduling things that we've been going through the past month or so, we never actually talked about The Last of Us. That episode never came out because by the time we like talked about the first episode, like 3 episodes had already been out. So we're like, fuck it. So we'll be doing our full review of The Last of Us. We'll do of course, our spoiler-free review beforehand, before our little break, and then we'll go into it deep in after our break. But before we do that, let's start off like we always do with some nerdy confessions, where we confess the things that make us nerds. Christian, why don't you start us off?
My nerdy confession is I just paid for the pre-order. I pre-ordered Diablo 4.
Ooh, I gotta do
I
that
was
today.
excited about it, and because it's like it's supposed to release tomorrow, which would have been a couple days, but
Early access or whatever.
the early access. Yeah, one thing is I'm a little bummed out is there's no date for Max.
Oh,
Fucking hating on the Mac people. It's only been Windows so far when previously I don't feel like I had to wait last time I got it on my Mac and no problem. I just played it. And yeah, there has been any releases for it. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'll just get on the PS5. I made sure and look, can you cross play? You can. I was like, dope. I could at least still play with people cross playing.
nice.
No worries. And then as soon as I pay for it, I was reading about it, and you're only allowed to play it for like 2 days. And
Oh,
then
that's kind of whack.
and then it goes away. And then or maybe I misread it. Please anyone correct me.
That
Uh,
I mean, I feel like that's sometimes how like early access betas and stuff go. For like Call of Duty, it's like early access weekend, and it's like just a weekend, and then you have to wait till it actually comes out.
like cool, now wait till June. Like the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, we
so
better
they
go
got
hard
me.
this weekend.
They definitely got me. I guess that's a good way of getting people to make sure and pre-order it,
Right, right.
because they didn't release. It just says I don't know. I guess partially my dumbass should have looked into it before paying for it, but it seems like kind of a fucked up gimmick of like as it tells you, you can level up 25 levels. You can see all of Sanctuary, and you could play these 3 characters and get extra items that won't be released till later. I was like, oh, dope! I get to play it early. Not
Yeah,
the full game, but at least I get to level up 25 until the full release comes out.
yeah. Hit the ground running or whatever.
That's like 40 hours, something like that.
Oh,
Playing,
whack.
yeah.
Well, you know, it is what it is. Like, what's funny to me is that in general, pre-ordering games digitally is a fucking racket. Like, like at least they're giving you something for pre-ordering it, because most of the time, Like take what's the Hogwarts Legacy, right? Like you pre-order that. What happens with your pre-order? Like it's not like they're going to run out of digital copies. Pre-orders came about when it was like, okay, Halo 3 is going to come out, and you're going to, if you work that day or whatever, you might get to Best Buy or Target or whoever, and they're out of copies. Then you don't get to play Halo with your buddies day one, kind of thing. You may have to wait till they ship more to the store. Nowadays, everything's digital. Most people are buying games digitally. It's like they're not going to run out. You know what I mean?
They
And like,
might. They might, Cody.
oh no, we're out of digital copies. We're all out, sold out.
We're gonna
Sorry,
have to
guys.
digitally print more.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always silly to me when it's like, oh, pre-order. And then I will say though, I kind of got screwed because with the new Destiny expansion, there was a pre-order for it too. And like I said, normally, like, who cares on pre-orders, right? But there was actually a gun you could only get with the pre-order. And it was one of those things where, like, normally, like with Hogwarts, right? Hogwarts Legacy is the last big game that came out. Um, like the pre-order, like if you pre-order the digital deluxe version, you get like extra cloaks and outfits and stuff like that. Like you can get that the day it comes out also, so you're not missing out on anything. But the Destiny one, you actually missed out on stuff. It was like, oh, now you just can't get this exotic machine gun. And I was like, oh,
See, they
cool.
almost got me with like the deluxe something other edition.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I logged into the PlayStation Store, I saw, oh, there it is, $100. I'm like, oh, is that what the game costs? Maybe it's a really big game. All right, whatever. And I click on it, and there's no other options. It's just the $99 version.
Who's
And I was just
sneaky?
like, that
That
doesn't
doesn't seem
seem
right.
right.
Yeah.
Seems kind of steep. So then I go and actually look for it in the PlayStation Store, and then there's the $69 one. That's what I got. And
Yeah.
then there was like the deluxe version and the something else version. And the only differences were like skins and something else. I'm like, wait, like $30 more for some skins? Fuck that. I'm sure it's like $5 later on
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
digital store. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm just getting the regular fucking game.
Yeah, that's
They
silly.
almost got me. They almost
Well,
got me.
yeah, I will say when you're buying stuff on the PlayStation Store, it can be kind of like more difficult than it should be to find what you're actually looking for. Like sometimes it's like, oh, I'm looking for Destiny, and it pops up with all these other Destiny things first, like things that Bungie obviously paid them to show first. And it's like, no, I want this one specific thing, and you have to like really hunt for it sometimes. So
It's like what supermarkets do. It's like they make the entrance like all the way to the right, but
yeah,
all the common stuff that people buy is all the way to the left.
so you
So
have
they
to
make you
walk
walk
through
the
the
entire
store.
fucking store,
Yep,
knowing that there's some odds that you're gonna buy some other shit.
100%. Yep, it's all planned, I'm sure. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I'm excited for Diablo. I played the last Diablo 3 that came out, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever it
Yeah.
was. Um, it was like my first PC game that I actually played on my computer, because it didn't come out on PlayStation until much, much later. So now that I actually have this, gaming PC, I'm kind of excited to like, take it for a spin on this new game. So
Yeah, see it. I'm not that excited on the PS5 version of it. Like I definitely wanted to play it on my computer. Or as Mark, my brother-in-law, would say, my inferior
yeah,
computer. But I'm so used to I got my gaming mouse where I can, put all the buttons on it. I just like I don't know how you're supposed to do all that on the PS5 because there's definitely like multiple different moves you can do with the like I'm
yeah,
sure it's gonna be like hold L1 and then press this and hold
probably like
L2 and then
some combo of buttons. Yeah, I actually this mouse here that I have, my Razer Death Adder or whatever.
yeah, that's exactly the same one I have. Yeah.
I bought this to play Diablo. That's how
Does it,
old.
it's got numbers 1 through 12 on the side?
It's got it's just got two buttons on the side.
Oh,
Know,
oh,
it's
you
kind of
got
hard to
one of
see.
those, huh?
Yeah, maybe it's not. I mean, it is old. Maybe it's time to upgrade to a new like super awesome mouse with all the buttons and rolling balls and stuff on it. Very cool. Well, my daily confession, I mean, I guess it kind of works out because we're doing this on Zoom. I can actually show you. I started building a new Magic deck,
Oh,
um, and like we've been playing Magic now for several months, and like I feel like I've kind of gravitated towards certain colors of mana and certain types of decks that have kind of that I've been very comfortable with doing, like
Yeah,
lots of tokens or
I've
big
noticed Cody
creatures.
avoids black a lot. I don't know why.
Actually, it's the opposite. I play primarily black because it's the cooler color, Christian. I'm appropriating that to myself. But yeah, no, I've definitely gravitated towards like graveyard stuff, like pulling stuff out of the graveyard and playing it again, or like big creatures or tokens, right? So I decided like I'm going to build a deck that kind of challenges what I normally play to try something different. So here I can actually pull it up on Zoom here so we can all actually see it. So this here is going to be my new Blink deck. So it's
Ooh.
blue and white, and the commander is Brago, King Eternal. And so you can pull him up here. So whenever he's a 2/4 flying, costs 4 mana, 2 blue and a white. And when he deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-land permanents you control, then return those to the battlefield under their owner's control. So this is what's known as a blink deck, and the idea of blinking something is you pull it away from the battlefield, then put it back onto the battlefield, so it's enter the battlefield abilities happen multiple times.
Is that Kaldheim?
He is from
Just looks like a Viking guy.
yeah, he is from Kaldheim Commander, apparently.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
At least this particular version of him. So the idea is, we get people like Ether Chandler here. When he enters the battlefield, choose one, create a 1/1 bird creature token with flying, return a target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or draw a card. So
Yeah, at
normally,
first I thought you said Ether Chandler, like Chandler Bing. I was
Chandler
like,
Bing, could I be any more ether? So the idea is like normally you would play this guy and you have to choose one of those three things, right? But now with the commander, every time he does commander damage, you get to blink this guy off the board and put him back onto the board. So you get to choose one again. So you can just get hella bird tokens or destroy a bunch of non-land permanents or whatever, or draw a bunch of cards. And so that's kind of like where I went with these. So all of these guys have cool enter the battlefield things. And of course, I had to make room for Ella Schnorn, Mother of Machines. So her power is if the permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So like basically you get double triggers of everything. So
so triggered.
yeah, pretty cool. And then of course
Yeah.
she also shuts off those abilities of my opponents too. So that would be a fun one to have up.
Anyone who saw Cody's car with the 1/1 bird is like, what can you really do with a 1/1 bird? Yeah. You should see his squirrel deck, his 1/1 squirrel deck. He's won multiple times with that. In the beginning when he said I'm gonna make a squirrel deck, I'm like, all right, buddy. Let's
Yeah.
see how that fucking goes. Oh,
Yeah, you guys
and
have
it
definitely
has wrecked.
felt the hurt of the squirrels. Seeing as we're out in Moxfield, might as well since we're here, might as well pull up the old squirrel deck. Let's see here. It would be under your decks.
That video you sent me of like making sure to have a finisher with
Mhm.
Post Malone. I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Old Posty's giving out some good advice. A
yeah,
lot of my decks don't have finishing combos, and there was one card for I made a treasure deck that I'm proud of. It hasn't done awesomely well, but
sure.
it's making treasure tokens, and I made it with dragons and goblins because they fucking love it. They love
Yeah,
that
they
shit.
love treasure, and both goblins and dragons love their treasure.
And there was a card that I saw, and it was like it collect 20 tokens and you win the game. I was like, oh, dude, if a game gets too long, like kind of
Exactly.
last time, Like
exactly.
I could end it, but it's a swamp card, and
Oh,
that has red green, so I can't play it. So I'm trying to hunt for a similar card to it.
yeah, that was kind of an interesting thing, and for anyone who plays Magic, I think that's an important lesson to learn is that, you know, every like when I was building the squirrel deck, right? It started off as like I was noticing that there's all these squirrels in the world of Magic, right? And it's like, dude, there's so many squirrels. Like it's like a weird theme that like some artist or game designer was like secretly putting things in. There's like people like the Nut Collector who makes squirrels. There's Chatterfang who adds more squirrels. He's a squirrel general and so like it started off just amassing all these squirrels, but then once you have them all collected, there's you get to the point where you're like, well, all of these squirrels are like 1 1 2 2, and most of what they do is create more squirrels. How am I going to win with this deck, right? Because like, if I have a bunch of 1 1s and everyone else has a bunch of 3 4s or whatever, I can't swing at all, right? I can't attack at all. So that's when the idea of like Crater Hoof Behemoth came out, where it's like, okay, what if all these squirrels had like another big buddy in the forest who, when shit got real, they could call upon and help them out. And what he does is he enters the battlefield, and all the creatures that I have on the battlefield get +1/+1 for every other creature on the battlefield. So if I have 20 squirrels, everything gets +20/+20. And then they all have trample and haste, and you just swing in and destroy everyone, right?
I think everyone on our side of the game fucking hates that card.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've never and we've never had a board wipe card during the time when you've pulled it out, or a blink card. Actually, the blink deck you're making would be pretty good against it, because
Yeah.
you can blink it out of all your creatures out of existence, but then you'll die. So
Yeah. Or I mean, also it's like, a simple counter spell can take care of that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So like I definitely there are ways of making him harder to, kill you guys. But it just seems like at least in our play group, a lot of people don't hold up mana for counter magic most of the time. Um,
we just
so
get excited.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And then I also have a combo in that squirrel deck where I just create infinite squirrels. There's like a loop where it just makes unlimited squirrels, and so then you can swing 10,000 squirrels at each character, and then doesn't matter how many blockers they have. But yeah, so I'm excited about that Blink deck. I just put in a fat order at TCG Player, which I will say, like normally we're Card Kingdom guys, but TCG Player has been pretty good on prices recently, and they have this thing where you can like optimize your cart. So rather than pulling from all these different ones, you can try to get in as few packages as possible. It's not
Yeah,
perfect, but
I don't know what's going on with Card Kingdom, man. Like, normally they're very go to and clutch, but yeah, me and Cody were talking about pre-game, pre-Saturday games, how like I'd made there's been two decently sized orders I've made, and it's like, dude, it's been like 5 days and it hasn't even progressed. It doesn't say that they're working on it.
right, right.
And I will say their customer service are also very excellent people. Every time I've called in to cancel an order, they're like super chill and apologetic. But last time I talked to someone, they said, "Yeah, there's a," and then there was a pause. I was like, "Something you can't talk about?" No, yeah, basically. I'm like, "All right, well, something going on? Is there a shakedown? Something like that." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
oof, there's something going on."
Hopefully they're just like maybe short staffed or something. Maybe they had a breakout of COVID or something. So
Yeah,
hopefully,
because it's just one store in like Seattle, right, or something.
yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and I do like buying from them because it all ships from one place, and you don't have to like worry about getting multiple packages, and it comes in a nice. In fact, I probably have one in here. Yeah, so it comes in nice little
Yeah.
plastic, hard cases. They always give you like an extra token and maybe a sticker or something. So like definitely a great shopping experience from them. It's just like if it takes 7 days to process and then another 5 days to get to you, man, that's like 2 weeks
Yeah.
of not playing with this deck that you've spent, many hours building or whatever.
And particularly, like, you're just excited, like, "Oh, I got these cards, I wanna
Yeah.
try it out.
Oh, what
Let's see
a
if it works. What adjustments do I need to make? Do I need to add more mana? Do I need to, like, lessen some mana?"
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. Been I've made 2 orders from TCG Player now, and it's yeah, I don't know. They've it's been pretty good with them so far. Plus, one thing I kind of like on TCG Player is you can, like Card Kingdom has it, but you can buy like, near mint quality cards, excellent quality, good or not so good,
Yeah.
but they never have any in the beat up range. You know what I mean?
They
So
probably get them, or, like, people, like, they probably just don't buy them, to be perfectly honest. 'Cause I don't I mean, I don't care. I don't think me and you would care. Like, we would
yeah,
buy a beat up card because we play with them. But I
yeah,
could imagine, like, they're catering to both players and collectors, so it's just like, there's
sure.
probably not gonna be a whole bunch of people that are willing to take a slightly beat up card.
Yeah, and they definitely do have more on like older cards for sure, but still, I've never seen one in like the last like beat up category.
Yeah.
And one thing with TCG players is they'll have some that, I mean, I don't want to buy a damaged card, but they'll have some that are like heavy played, and I think those cards need a home too. You know what I mean? So I don't mind going
There's
to
a
that.
whole market they're missing out there. Dude, comics, I will buy, like, they're graded 1 through 10. I'll buy a 4. I'll buy a 3, depending on what comic it is,
Yeah.
because they're more affordable. It's like sometimes I just want to own it, you know?
Also, like on a lot of these classic comics or cards or whatever, they're not making more of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like like I do have like my Daredevil number 7, I think 7, which is the first time he puts on the red suit in comics. I think that's like a 4.5 or a 5 or something, and it's like, sure, it's not 9 or 10, but it also wasn't like, 4 grand, you know what I mean? So it was it's cool to have that piece of history, whether or not it's in perfect condition or not. But
Speaking of which, did you see Mr. Berthanol is going to be casted back as
John Bernthal
as
is going to
Punisher?
be the Punisher again. Yep.
Yeah.
But I also heard that Foggy Nelson and Karen are going to be not returning, and then they also recast Wilson Fisk's love interest. I forget what her first name was. Um, Vanessa Fisk. So they are recasting some people, which is kind of interesting.
Nothing against that actress. But honestly, anyone watching or listening, do you remember her face? Do you remember her face?
I mean,
If they didn't even mention it and they had just done the switch, how many of you guys would have really noticed?
sure, sure. I mean, I would, but I've watched that series like 4 or 5 times now. So, because Daredevil's one of my favorite superheroes. And it's, but like, you're right. It's not like recasting the Kingpin, right? Like that would be a big,
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? But like, and like, yes, it sucks. Like, I think that, Deborah Ann Wall did a great job as Karen, and I think I forget what the guy's name is, but the guy who played Foggy Nelson, he did an excellent job too. The guy from the Mighty Ducks, you remember that?
Yeah.
You realize he was the
The
Mighty
Bash
Ducks,
Bros.
the Bash Bros. Yeah, that's right. I think they did great jobs. So that's kind of a bummer. Her character, not that big of a deal to me, but yeah, I'm excited that John Bernthal is coming back as Punisher because that's gonna be awesome. It just I wonder how deep they're gonna go with like the violence and stuff.
I don't know, man. I It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because
Yeah.
what they did with Daredevil in She-Hulk, it's like that's not the Daredevil we know, in the sense that he was, not that I always want to see him down and
Right. He
on his
had
luck. He was kind of like, oh, he seemed happy go lucky, and like it's very a different tone from Daredevil.
sure.
So
Now, one thing too is that he did have his moments of levity and being kind of upbeat and jokey and stuff in the series, but most of the time when he had the Daredevil mask on, he was Daredevil and he
yeah.
was out to beat some ass kind of thing. So be
And
interesting.
it's not to say that that's what the way it's going to be, because in comics, like Spider-Man, my favorite, like, I love him because when he's in danger, he jokes around, but it's like he uses the joke to distract himself from like he's moments away from possibly dying, but he makes things light. But if he's in an Avengers comic, he doesn't joke around maybe all that much.
Right.
So it's different tone. So like it could possibly change, but at the same time, it's Disney. You know, I don't know. It can go either way because
Right.
they could make it lighter so as to like they can make it wide to a wider audience, or they can keep it the way it is, and fans, or at least the true fans or the people who fell in love with it the first time, will love it. Um, it does give me hope that they portaled in the old show and they didn't change anything, so they just put the warning. So it can go. It in my eyes, it's a fucking coin toss. It can go
Yeah.
either way.
I will say the one thing, I like how we got into a Daredevil tangent,
Yeah,
but
no,
one thing I did like is that in She-Hulk, we got to see what a Disney budget can do too, right? We saw him like doing a bunch of flips and a little CG, stuff where he's like jumping off the side of a building and swinging with his billy club thing, which like we never saw any of that
yeah.
in the Netflix series, right? Like when he's on the rooftop and he's just a dude running in a suit, it just looks like a dude running in a suit. You know what I mean? Where he's supposed to be this really acrobatic ninja type guy.
Yeah,
So
because he does some Spider-Man-ish kind of,
yeah,
not web
exactly.
slinging, but like web
Swinging
slinging,
around
like yeah,
with
with his Billy
his
Club.
club, yeah. So hopefully there'll be a good mix. I just hope the fight choreography is just as good, and if his hands don't come up super bloody afterwards, like I'm okay with that as long as the choreography looks good. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And Marvel, the Disney Marvel has done great fight choreography. If you think back at Captain America: Winter Soldier, some of the best fight scenes you've
yeah,
ever seen. Or Shang Chi was also really really good. You
yeah.
know, so even though Shang-Chi was obviously murdering a lot of those guys when he's throwing them off the building and stuff, like it's okay that you don't see like blood and
He
guts. Like,
was raised an assassin, Cody. So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, no, I think that's fine. And if we don't see blood shooting out of them and like bamboo things sticking out of them when they get impaled on the
yeah,
bottom, that's fine.
we didn't see them die. They could have
Yeah,
survived. They're well, they're not ninjas, but they're
yeah,
monks. I don't
yeah,
know.
exactly. So anyway, but yeah, so excited for that. But let's talk The Last of Us. If we're gonna talk any streaming series, we should talk about the one at hand. So let's do our non-spoiler. Should people watch The Last of Us on HBO out now? The whole series is out now. So if you're not an HBO subscriber, you can like do the free trial, binge it all, and then cancel your subscription if you want. But what did you think, without getting into spoilers, what did you think of the series overall? Did it do a good job of, replicating the video game?
It did a great job of making it feel in the universe, and making some, I would say, great changes that kept the people who played the game interested in a little bit more backstories and some stuff that the game didn't answer. I loved it. I think it was great casting with Senor Pedro Pascal.
Hmm.
Anyone who I mean, I feel like the guy's universally loved. It's like
Yeah.
everyone loves him, and so like that's what drew people in and kept them in. And the fact that it's a great story, kept people coming back for more. So in my eyes, it was dope. Highly
And,
recommend watching it.
and like it's kind of hard to judge because we've both played those games. But do you think someone who hasn't watched or hasn't played the games at all would come into the series, and you think they would be lost, or you think that the show did an excellent job of telling the actual story?
I would say they did an excellent job because I didn't know Sabrina, my fiance, didn't. I could have sworn she watched me play the game, and
Yeah.
she didn't. And someone, the second game for her, a coworker of hers. So she came home like, I didn't know. I was like, didn't know what? Last of Us 2. And I'm not gonna go into it for
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who didn't play, but she's just like, why wouldn't you tell me? I was like, why? I thought you watched me play. Like,
Yeah.
I thought you knew.
I
Why
thought
would
you
I tell
knew.
you something you already knew?
Yeah, yeah,
In my eyes,
exactly.
you knew that shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
think
see, so for someone who doesn't know and gets that spoiled for them, I don't know if they'll continue. Uh,
yeah,
but we'll see.
we'll see. Yeah. Yeah, I think they did a great job of capturing the world, the feel, and the relationship between Joel and Ellie, which is like, that at its core is what The Last of Us was. Like,
Yeah,
yes, it's a zombie horror survival type game, but at its core, it's like you're just watching this relationship between these two grow and blossom into something different in this bleak, grim world that they live in, right? And it's supposed to be like this kind of like this like glimmer of hope that comes into this otherwise downtrodden, bleak looking world. So I think they did an excellent job, and I think that fans of the game will have stuff that's new to them. Like, even though I've played that game multiple times, there was never a time in the show where I was like, "Oh, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen." I was never bored with it. There was enough new stuff in there, an expansion of what was not in the games, that it was fresh and exciting for me. But it was also enough of the nods and winks to what happened in the game, and sometimes a scene for scene
yeah.
like recasting or a retelling of the story, that it pulled on all the heartstrings in the right moments and stuff. So I mean, this might be the best video game adaptation ever, I'd say.
I would say I'm just a little bummed out that they didn't show Joel crafting. You know, he wasn't taking parts of scissors and knives and
No
making
crafting
shapes.
shivs.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
And we'll
smoke bombs or explosives. You
or
know,
throwing bricks to
yeah,
distract people. uh
bottles. You know,
I think we'll talk a little bit more about that after the break in the spoiler section. I mean,
I'm
there was
obviously
some
kidding. I don't give a shit about that.
yeah, there were some like areas that could have been maybe improved upon, expanded upon, but I think overall this was an excellent adaptation. And like, if you're not a big video game fan but you wanted to experience The Last of Us, this is a perfect substitute for it because it gets everything right, I think, and really, really did a great job. But
You know,
w-
I don't know if it was SNL or some other. I don't know. I don't know if it was TV because some of the YouTube stuff looks pretty good. But someone had done like an actual video game version show of Last of Us, and it was just like Joel like crouched,
uh,
listening and going like grabbing stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty funny.
I was like, dude, that's yeah. I was like, that's pretty funny because that's like a lot of the actual gameplay, but story wise,
Yeah, like
yeah,
1 week's episode is just 20 minutes of you up against the wall listening,
yeah.
like to the clickers, and then like, shit, should I go now? Should I go now? Nah, I'm just gonna wait till they make one more pass.
Just listening and how somehow listening gives you like X-ray vision. You can see behind
Yeah,
walls.
yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, well, we're gonna take a quick little break, and when we get back, we're gonna dive deep into The Last of Us. So if you haven't seen the show or maybe played the game, we're gonna be talking heavy spoilers after the break. So stick with us if you have, and we'll be right back. And we're back. All right, so we're gonna get into full spoilers. I don't have my little spoiler button hooked up to the computer, so just know that spoilers are coming for The Last of Us, the first season of the show, as well as the first video game as well. We'll leave the second video game mostly out of it. Maybe we'll do an even deeper spoiler right at the end, talking about what's to come next. But we'll try to keep that to a minimum if you haven't played or played that or read about it. So yeah, so the show starts off almost exactly like the game, except I did like the expansion of like where the virus or where the fungus started, and how it kind of got started. I think that was a cool way of starting the show that gave us a little extra that the video game actually didn't get us, right? We had the guy talking about what would happen if a fungus took over, how it's much harder to stop than a virus or a bacteria, how it's like it would basically mean the end of the human race kind of thing. It was a cool foreshadowing in that TV show spot in the beginning. And then I think it was like maybe the second episode where they had I think she was a Filipino lady who was like a fungus expert when she first sees the cordyceps, and she's like, just like bomb the whole city. You need to do this right now. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, this is gonna be super bad if it gets out. That was a cool way of kind of showing how the world first reacted to the cordyceps expanding, because we really don't see that much in the game. See little
No.
hints of it, and you can read certain letters and things that you pick up in the game, but we really don't know like where it started or how it started, how it got out to everyone. And I think the in the first episode, you can notice because they do mention in, I think, the one with the Filipina lady who was a scientist, she mentions like the perfect medium would be like flour, like it getting into a flour factory or something. And you notice in the first episode, like Joel's like, "Oh, I didn't make pancakes." She's like, "You said you were going to make pancakes." He's like, "Nah, I didn't do it." She's like, "Make sure you pick up your birthday cake." He's like, "I didn't get my birthday cake." And then when they're like, "Hey, come over for cookies," the neighbor's like, "Hey, come over for cookies." He's like, "No, I'm on Atkins, which is a low carb diet or whatever." So in the whole
I never
first,
noticed that. I read an article that pointed it out. I was like, "Oh, I missed all that." I was like, that was nice."
yeah, yeah. So he was avoiding flour the entire time in the first episode. I thought that was such a cool little like thing that they didn't have to necessarily do, but they really laid the groundwork really well for that. And then I mean, like the scene um where they're driving in the truck as like the town is zombies are taking over the town essentially.
Yeah, it was almost beat for beat the
Oh my
game.
god,
Yeah.
it was so good. It was so good.
And then particularly in the game, like that's when I was playing it and you play that one part, that's what I knew is like this game's gonna be fucking awesome. As soon as like I was like just the angles and like the cinematography of that part of the game, I was like, all right, I know, I'm in it. I was like this is gonna
Yeah.
be great. I
And
fucking know it.
and like in the game, you start off playing as Sarah, right? His Joel's daughter. And in that first episode, we're with Sarah most of the episode, right? Joel goes off to work and we're with her. She's getting the watch repaired. She's going around town. She's hanging out with the neighbor's mom or whoever. And then in the truck, we see a perspective shift from her to Joel eventually, from the back seat to the front seat. And that's like when you take over as Joel in the game. And it was just such a cool way of doing that because in a video game, the perspective shift is much more apparent because you're like, oh, I'm playing as this guy, or I'm playing as this little girl first. Now I'm playing as this guy. Like something has changed. It's more in your face about it. But in the show, that's a little harder to do. With you just got to do it with camera angles and whatnot. And I felt they did an excellent job of that. And I think that the casting of Sarah, Tommy, and Joel, of course, are awesome. And then, of course, once we meet Ellie later, I think Bella Ramsey did an excellent job as being Ellie without like doing an impersonation of Ashley Johnson's voice
You know,
acting.
I'm not gonna lie, I was so used to Ashley Johnson being Ellie, and then like in the beginning, I was like, I don't like it. I
Yeah,
don't like it. I didn't say anything, but I was just like, I'm not feeling this. And then I think it was like the third episode with her in it. I'm like, nope, I see it. Okay, I love this kid. All right.
yeah,
Nope, she's good.
yeah,
She got it.
exactly.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it was,
I think
and
she
I think
nailed
it
it.
was me. I think it was just like a gut thing. I was just like, no, I'm so used to Ashley Johnson. Like that is her. That is Ellie. Like. But yeah, she definitely she grew on me, and I was like, okay, no, she's cool. She's cool.
Absolutely,
And in fact, I saw someone modify. They did mods on the Last of Us, and they put her face in the game. I was like,
that's
oh, that's
cool.
pretty cool. I was like, that's pretty cool. It fits in the game too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one thing that I really liked about the series was that we got to see like total expansions on characters that we didn't really get much time with in the game. The most obvious being, I think it was episode 3
3.
with what was his name? Frank and what was the other guy's name? Frank and Barry? No, it can't be.
Ron Swanson was Frank, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah, he's in the game, but his
yeah.
partner isn't.
Well, his
He's
partner.
mentioned.
Well, he is
Well,
because
he's hinted.
he had like hung himself or something, and you see his body, but you like we didn't get this entire Frankenbill. Frankenbill is the other character's name. We don't get this entire story with them, right? We don't know like what they had gone through together, and like that episode for being an episode that has like you know like no zombies basically in it for the most part, and like no Joel and Ellie for the most part, was like one of my favorite episodes of the whole
Dude,
show.
it was so good. I can't imagine anyone watching that episode, and maybe they didn't cry because I didn't cry, but I definitely felt my eyes get kicked in the nuts.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like, and anyone
exactly.
who just like didn't feel something watching that episode, you don't have a soul, man. Like anyone who didn't feel anything is like, dude, what's wrong with you?
I
You're not a
know.
person.
It was yeah, it was so nice and so sweet. Like there was this they had their own little haven in this world gone mad kind of thing where they were just living their life together and they wouldn't have been able to live that life if not for what had happened
Yeah.
with the world, going crazy kind of thing. It was so good. And I think it was it I think it was your joke where you were like, how about when uh Bill was like watching Frank sleep. He wakes up, he's like, "Gotcha."
Oh,
It's been the long con the whole time. I'm taking over this house.
that's right.
I was like, "God damn, that's so
It's
good."
like, what if like all the way at the end, when they're old,
I
Bill
ain't even gay. I
yeah,
just
gotcha.
gotcha. What the fuck?
Played the long con
Played the
game.
long con. This is my house now. I just
Yeah.
had to wait for my opportune moment.
He had to wait, dude. He had way too
Yeah,
many guns. He was too strong. He was well situated. He had to learn how to, grow food. He had to learn all that, and that takes years. It's not a quick thing.
yeah, exactly,
But once he
exactly.
got it down, I was like,
He
gotcha,
was,
bitch.
gotcha, bitch. I don't have cancer or whatever.
I'm not even gay. Just
So good.
like it would have ruined that episode, but goddamn, that would have made me laugh so
I
hard.
yeah, I would. Oh my god, it would. Yeah, it would have ruined the episode, but it would have made me laugh so much. Um, we also get to see a little bit. We get to see more of uh, the dude and his little brother. I forget what his name. Those guys' names were, but the
Yeah, the kids. I forgot their names, but
yeah,
yeah,
but we
that was a good episode too. That's where we saw the majority of the clickers and the behemoth clicker as well.
yeah exactly, and um it's like it was cool. I think it was Sam and Henry. I think it was. Um, I think those are the right character names. But yeah, the fact that we get to see a little bit of what they went through leading up to where you meet them in the game made it that much more heartbreaking when the little kid eventually turns, and we get to see Ellie trying to save him and stuff. I think that's what the show did really well was take the moments that were hinted at in the game and maybe the people who didn't collect every little note and diary entry that you find in the game and didn't read all of them because I'm guilty of that. Like I'll be like, okay, collect this thing, cancel out of it, continue fighting zombies, and we get to see more of that in the show and they expanded it and it really helps build the world. So now that I've watched the show, I'm kind of excited to go back and play. Maybe I'll play like the remastered edition on PS5, and like get to experience that knowing what's happening in the background kind of thing. And then
It was interesting in this last
yeah,
episode. Remember the giraffe
yes,
that they're feeding?
the draft scene so good.
And I remember like watching. I was like, I fell for this too. where I was like, well, my perspective was a little bit different. I was like, man, that giraffe looks amazing. Like they did a really good job on the CG.
Yeah,
And
no
on
shit.
Twitter, I saw a lot of people just saying like, oh, that giraffe looked like shit. Oh, why do they like, why do they even put it in there if they're gonna make the CG bad? It was a real goddamn
Yeah,
giraffe.
it's a real giraffe. Yeah. Yeah, they like I like watching the behind the scenes making of shows like that. And they went to the zoo, and they basically there's like a place where you feed the giraffes where the zookeepers do, and it's up high because giraffes are fucking tall, right? And so it's just like that where it's kind of open and you're looking over the giraffe, and they just covered all the hand railing and stuff with blue screen so they could CG out. So all the building around them is CG in the background, of course. But then there's this fucking giraffe there, and they're feeding a real giraffe. And I was like, damn, what a cool way of doing that to make sure it looks good. And even the one of the producer guys of the show was like, yeah, you can make a CG giraffe, but it just won't look as good as the real thing. So we just decided we have to make it real. And I think that's one thing that the show did really well was they did stuff in practical effects that they could, like a lot of the zombies and stuff were practical, and they just kind of enhanced it with CG, right? They added more of them, added maybe extra little moving bits on there of the fungus coming out of them and stuff. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff was done practically. A lot of the sets were practical, and I think that really helped elevate the show for sure.
The tongue thing on the fucking infected was so
Oh,
gross, man. I
so
could have
good.
done with that's not in the game. It's
That's
like
not, yeah.
I could have done without that shit. Like, oh, I mean, it was cool, but I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think we should talk maybe about some of the things that have changed from the game into the show, and that's one of them. One of them is that you know in the game it was always through a bite, right? That's how everyone got infected. But in the show, they really made it so that you could see that the fungus was what was doing it. So like when they're when Tess is about to get uh killed for 100% killed, and she's about to pull the grenade and blow herself up, this one zombie's like doing like the death kiss with her, and you see all the little mycelium things coming
Blah.
out of his mouth and into her mouth. And I mean, that wasn't in the game, but goddamn was it effective. It was
Yeah.
super horrifying, and really gross, got that body horror thing going on. And I think that was kind of cool. That was a really cool addition to the show that would have made the game even better. But that game came out on what was it,
PS3.
PS3?
PS3 was it? I think PS.
I think it was PS3, maybe early PS4. I could be wrong. Um, but animating that in a video game is very difficult to do. But when it's just one scene or two scenes in the show, it's not that bad. And then another thing too that they added to the show, I don't remember this in the game, was how just like how there's these mycelium networks underground that let all the fungus kind of communicate with each other. Having that where you see the zombies kind of like all rolling out of the sun together in that one scene. They're all kind of reacting as one. And then like if one of them hears something, they all hear something. That was a kind of a cool addition to the show that really expanded upon the danger of these zombies, and really brought home the fact that this is a fungus, not a virus. They are all they have a somewhat hive mentality because they are all one fungal entity kind of thing. I thought that
So
was
one thing that some people were pointing out that they were bummed out was there wasn't that many clickers or infected.
sure.
But thinking back on the game, like it's not like they were the only villain. Like the majority of the time, you're fighting mostly
Other
garbage people,
yeah,
like
other
garbage
humans.
other humans. Like I don't know. I didn't feel like there was. Could there have been more? Sure, but in the game, and particularly in the beginning of the game, like they're very scattered around, and they're more of the harder enemies. Um, I didn't feel, but I guess HBO had addressed like the next season is gonna have more clickers to satisfy everyone, but it's I feel like sometimes the audience does get shit right, or the people, the fans do get things right, and particularly, there goes Sonic. We didn't want to see the human teeth and
Yeah,
this weird ass Sonic, but for something like that, I just don't want it to get in the way of. Particularly, the show's been doing a great job of the storytelling and everything else.
right.
Like, if there were some major things wrong with it, all right, maybe throw out some suggestions. But I just hope it doesn't affect the quality of the show just because, well, this is what they wanted, so let's just cut
Right.
this one scene that would develop this one character out so we can throw in some clickers. As long as it doesn't do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, it's one thing to say, you know, like we want more zombies in it. Like I can understand a little bit of that. There were several episodes where there was not an effect infected at all. And maybe just seeing some in the background would kind of make the world feel more dangerous kind of thing. But I don't want it to get in. I don't want it to do two things. I don't want it to get in the way of the story, like you said, but I also don't want them to have to put so many in that they start looking like a CG mess, right?
Yeah.
Like Wheel of Time is, one of my favorite book series of all time, and the show has some problems and issues with it. And one of them is the Trollocs, which are one of the rank and file bad guys in that show. They're like these beast men. Kind of think of like the Dark Tower, the low men kind of thing. There's similar idea to that. And when you first see them, they look great because they're like dudes in suits kind of thing, right? And they're just enhanced with CG. But then there's like one episode later where there's supposed to be an army of them, and they look like shit. Like they're super janky looking CG models. And I don't want that to happen to The Last of Us. I think, if you have to have a room with, you know, like 12 clickers in it, like are they going to dress 12 people up in the full makeup gear and stuff and have to like, have them all do the crazy twitchy, acting movements? But or are they just going to be like, well, we have to do so many, let's just CG them, and then it doesn't look as good. So I don't want them to sacrifice quality to add more zombies in it. I was fine with how many infected there were in the show. I think that would more have been cool, sure, but did it really need it? I don't think that it did. I think the amount that they had in there, when there was the scene of them coming up out of the ground to take out that what was it, Philadelphia or Kansas City or whatever,
Oh
all
yeah, with a
those
group.
people. When I mean that looked amazing, and there was a shit ton of zombies, and they even had one of the big the brute guys. I don't remember what those
I
guys
think they
are,
were called behemoths. I think.
behemoths, whatever they were called in the game. They had him coming out. He looked great, and he was very much CG. But I think it looked good, and because they had a lot of real actors coming out of there, they just enhanced it with more CG characters. I think that's the way to go, and I hope that that's what they do for season 2 as well. Just using CG lightly, but to enhance things, but keep everything as practical as possible. Because there is something about like seeing the slime and the sheen of these latex face pieces that these people are wearing that really gives the actor something to act against, and enhances
I'm always
the
a
show.
practical effects person, man. I'll take practical effects over CG anytime. I
Yeah.
wish, in fact, like I don't know if the Jim Henson Company actually does like horror Muppets and puppets, but I think if they got into it, they could probably make some super dope stuff.
Well, I think there's a time and a place for it. I think that CG, like the Mad Max Fury Road, is a good example of it. Right? They built all those cars.
Yeah,
Right? The one with the guy on it with the guitar and the bungee cords
flame.
and the flamethrower and
Throwing
stuff.
with the fucking flamethrower and shit.
Yeah. So that was all practical. But there was a lot of CG used in that movie also, because you got to make the background look like a desert wasteland, and they're really driving someplace out in like Utah or whatever, I don't know. And you know the little enhancements, adding more flames, more dust, cyclone in the background, like that stuff enhances the stuff that's really there. Just like Jurassic Park, one of the reasons why Jurassic Park still really holds up today is that they had a big animatronic, you know, T-Rex
T-Rex,
head
yeah.
that was like biting through the glass and stuff like that for the actors to react to. But then when it's running down the street and stuff, the body of it is all CG. I think that, having both things together, working together in harmony, is really how you get a good quality end product. But yeah, excellent show. I mean, I think they did a really great job of it. Now let's briefly talk spoilers for Last of Us Part 2. And because they have said that they are going to adapt season 2 and I think 3. I think the next 2 seasons are going to be Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna do that in order to stretch out something.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. And also, they said that they're not going to recast Bella Ramsey because there is a time jump between Last of Us 1 and Last of Us 2.
I think I think that I mean, well, the actress looks really young, but I think did a good job of like dressing her to make her seem young. But I think she's actually 20. So, I mean, it'll probably be like another year, and I mean, I think she's the right age for what should happen for
Yeah, I think by the time they're done with it, she will have kind of caught up to so she's 19 right now. So I think by the time they're done with season 2, season 3 of the show, she will be in the 24, 25-year-old range, which I think is what Ellie is supposed to be in Last of Us Part 2. Early 20s kind of thing. So I think that um, they'll be able to kind of match that correctly. But the big spoiler, and of course now if you haven't played Last of Us Part 2, turn off the last couple minutes of the podcast. We appreciate you listening this far anyway. But there's a big thing that happens basically in the beginning of that game, which is Joel gets killed very brutally with
and
a golf club.
and I'm sure we when the game came out we talked about it, but I don't mind. Well, I mean, I do mind because in the game, Joel or Pedro Pascal and Joel are equally awesome, and I get it to push the story, and the game obviously does some brutal things. It wasn't the fact that he was killed; it was just how he was killed. Being what he goes through in game one and what he survived, and I think the show's done a great part of showing, at least early on in the episode, where Joel's like, "I'm getting older. I can't do what I can do."
Right.
So it's like, oh, okay. They're laying the groundwork versus in the game, he's like killing behemoths and doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
I
it,
think
it
I
was
think I think you're right that the game did a bad job of foreshadowing that
yeah,
because maybe I'm sure they hadn't written that yet, right? But like you go from this guy who can literally do anything, like he's fighting these hordes of zombies, he's sneaking around, taking out the entire hospital full of
yeah,
fireflies, you
with
know,
guys with like fucking
AK-47s and
ARs,
stuff,
AK-47s and stuff, and
and
he
then he
gets
gets
taken out
whooped
by
by a buff chick
yeah,
and
and
her
it's not
teenage
only
friends.
just that, but it's just like and they're newbies, like they're not he's a seasoned guy who's gone through
Yeah,
a bunch of stuff, and this is someone new. It's like I don't know, it bummed me out.
it it bummed me out for sure. And I think that I'm pretty sure what's going to happen if I was to predict what
Season
season.
2 is going to be things that happens between 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think it's going to be because we already saw Ellie, confronting him about what happened with the Fireflies. I think we're going to see them kind of grow apart in season 2, and then it's going to end with season 2 with Joel dying, and that's going to be like probably the last episode.
Yeah,
And then season 3 is going to be Ellie's quest for revenge. And maybe it even starts with what was the other chick's name? The
Abby.
Abby. I think it's probably going to start off with Abby with her friends at her camp that she lives at, and like getting to know her, and then Ellie's going to come in and be almost like the bad guy of the series kind of thing, because that's kind of how the second half of that video game played out.
I will say that that's what the game. As much as I didn't like how Joe was killed, the second game did a good job at making you question. What are villains in this world? Like,
Right,
who is
right,
really the villain? Is it really like? Do you really blame people for the actions they're taking? It's like it's hard to tell, and I love that in like certain like when movies do that. It's like, well, this character who you see as a villain did X, Y, and Z, but then you learn their reasons. Like, can you really blame that person? Like, would you even do something different?
right. And
And
I
that's what the game did. Awesome, it did a great job of that.
yeah, and I think, the longer I've kind of sat with the game, because I wasn't a huge fan of what they did with Ellie's character, right? It seems like all the character growth she had gone through in the first game was kind of thrown out the window a little bit almost immediately in the first game. Like the innocence, the sense of wonder was all kind of gone immediately in that first game, in the second game. And I'm hoping that with the show they can actually you can see that progress a little bit more in a more even way, so that when she turns into this like revenge hungry like juggernaut where she won't stop at anything, I think maybe it'll feel more earned, because it didn't feel
Mhm.
earned initially in the game. And that was my big thing. It was like, yeah, it sucks that Joel died. Like, I love him as a game character, and it sucks that we won't see him in other games, right? Um, but I think the thing that bothered me most about that game was Ellie's character destruction, where she just turned, she didn't take any of the lessons she had learned from Joel and apply it to her own life until maybe the very end of it. And that felt kind of like I felt a little betrayed by that. So I hope that the series does a better job of expanding upon, like, what she went through in the time between the end of the first game and the beginning of the second game, so we know like maybe things haven't been as easy for her, and the rift between Joel has really deteriorated her, her sense of self and whatnot. And maybe it'll feel more earned in the coming seasons of the show. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't have any reason to doubt that they're not going to do a good job,
I
but
think
I
I think
think
they'll
you're
do a
right.
great job.
I think the show, I think it's going to play exactly how you said, and I think the show will do a good job of where the game didn't, where it's going to show how they drifted apart. Because you're right. In the end of the first one, they really care for each other, and Ellie has a question, but it's not really answered. And then second game start, she got her answer. She's not happy with it, but it just goes from one extreme to the other, and
Right.
so I think it'll be good.
Yeah, and I think if we learned anything from this first season, is that they're very good at taking the parts that were glossed over in the game and expanding them, right? Because like we won't spend 6 hours wandering around the city like we did in the video game, right?
Yeah.
It'll be more filtered down, so we have room to like expand on some of these little interactions, like her and Dina, her and Joel and their relationship in the beginning. That was so quick in the game, because like a game wants you to get into the gameplay as quickly as possible, right? So they speed over some of this character development a little bit. And I think the show, like episode 3 that we saw in this season, can take these little bits that were hinted at and expand on them into something that makes the overall show better. So I'm excited to see what happens. And I think it's great. We can't get season 2 and 3 soon enough. So
Yeah.
hopefully, can't wait.
Oh,
Cool.
show.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for listening, watching, and dealing with us in a more virtual capacity this time. I know that sometimes Zoom isn't always the best medium for podcasting, but hopefully it turned out well. You guys can let us know by liking and subscribing, leaving us a comment down below. What did you think of Last of Us Season 1? We'd like to hear your opinions as well. And make sure to check out patreon.com/nerds with friends to help support the show. And Christian, thank you for being the Ellie to my Joel.
I survived.
Yeah, for now. We'll see what happens in Last of Us 3.
I know, right?
All right, guys, to all the nerds out there, remember, you're not alone. You're with friends. This is Nerds with Friends. Thank you.